Hi, I'm Peter Parnay. I'm a Ninja Selling instructor from Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm very excited to be able to share some ideas with you about our round-robin practice sessions. We have found that practice, as you know from learning about the Mastery Ladder, is that convergence between knowledge and skills. And so we have worked very specifically at coming up with a technique that is user-friendly. Agents are typically really uncomfortable with role play because it's scary. And in the old system, one agent was typically in the hot seat with a role play partner. But as you'll see in this technique, everybody gets to play, and all they have to do is one question at a time. We focus on two ninja skills very specifically here. The first is it matters who says it. And the way you get that to happen is by asking questions. And then, of course, the second ninja skill is the next question is embedded in the last answer. So as you guide these as the manager, your job is going to keep the agents from moving into presentation mode. Their natural tendency is to want to display, show off, their skill set and how they overcome the objections. But that is not the intention here. The other thing you want to notice is that I try to very specifically, gently, and not shamefully correct them on the fly. And that's going to be very important because if you criticize them too strongly during the role play, they won't come back. So I would like to introduce these people and tell you that this was the very first time this group of people had ever been together. There was no rehearsal, no practice. They didn't even know what the scenario with the seller or the buyer would be. And so this is going to look very similar to what it looks like in your branch when you start these. The best thing to do is to start it, and you'll all learn along the way. Thank you very much. Here you go.
Like we have discovered that using the term role play is much like asking an agent to get a root canal without anesthesia. So we would suggest as you present this in your branch, don't use the term role play, we're going to use practice. And so the concept today is instead of one person being on the hot seat, everybody in the room gets to play, and we're going to work on two ninja principles. Asking is better than telling, and what we want to do then, secondly, is reinforce the concept that the next question is embedded in the last answer. So what we're going to work on today is seeing if we can, in this round-robin format, take a pretty common scenario that as agents for buyers and sellers might encounter and see if we can demonstrate how this might work. Okay, ready? I think we should introduce ourselves for the camera. Hi, I'm Peter.
I'm Siri Anderson.
Amy Hayden.
I'm Don Tennyson.
I'm Katie Shea.
And this is not rehearsed. This is what it would look like in your branch. These are professionals, not trained. And although we did ask Reese Witherspoon and Tom Cruise to show up today, they were a little bit anxious about trying this. So these are the real courageous warriors doing this in front of you all over this great nation of ours. So we're going to pick a pretty common seller scenario, and for the purposes of this, the manager or the leader, and in this case me, is going to be the seller. And then we're going to go around, and we have some great tools at our disposal, much like in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. We can have lifelines and call a friend, and so you'll see that this is really what it would look like in your branch if you were doing it in a skills group. The setup here is that you have a listing, I'm the seller, and the house hasn't sold, and for the obvious reason that it's overpriced, and we're a couple of months into the listing. Seller's been a little reluctant to deal with the price issue, and like most sellers, they're going to try and make it your problem, and so that's the setup. So Siri, you've done a good job, but the house hasn't sold, which is kind of concerning to me, and I think we need more open houses.
Tell me what you're expecting out of your open houses.
Well, I just think that buyers these days they're out looking at open houses, and I just don't think the right buyer has come through the house yet.
So what do you think we can do to help attract that right buyer into the open house?
Oh, I don't know. I think you're in charge of the marketing here, so I just think more open houses. That's the key.
So, Peter, let me ask you this. How do you think the open houses have worked so far in terms of attracting potential buyers?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember how many people have been through the open house, but if they had worked, we would have an offer now.
So besides open houses, what else do you think would help sell your home?
Well, I don't really know. I'm going to just weigh in that's your job to market it.
How would you rate the effectiveness of the other marketing we've been doing for the sale of your home?
Well, I think if it was effective, we'd have an offer now. So let's time out. In the ninja world, we know that focusing on getting people to where they want to be is the technique that really helps. The open house here is what we would call a red herring. That they are trying to fool you as the agent into being nervous about open houses. And what's the real issue?
Price.
House isn't sold.
Price.
The house isn't sold, and price. So for the next round, let's see if we can transition them from open houses to where they want to go,
Okay.
and remind them about the time frame.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm going to restart with you. Siri, I'm worried because if all your marketing, and I love the group, and I love all your marketing, and I love your internet, and I love the open houses, but if the marketing were working, my house would have an offer.
So, Peter, let's talk about, if it's okay with you, let's talk about the market speaking to you about your home. Do you recall that when we did our pre-listing interview?
Yes. So let's reframe that question, because that was a closed-end question.
Okay.
And this is, as the manager, what you're going to be helping your group with. She's trying to set up to reopen the conversation about
Price.
price. And I'm going to propose that maybe focusing on where they want to be would be a way to do that. So let's hold that question, but let's try towards getting me, and I think it is appropriate always to say, remind me of your time frame. You can make a simple question there. So, Siri, it's the marketing, it's not working.
Peter, remind me of your time frame to get sold and moved.
Well, it's December now, and golly, we really need to be in San Antonio on March 15th would be better, but somewhere between March 15th and April 1st.
So based on that, what I'm hearing is we need to be under contract probably the middle of February. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Well, tell me how you came up with that date. So do exactly that. That was beautiful, but do the calendar, reverse engineer it for me.
Sure. So from what I'm hearing from you, it sounds as though we need to have you under contract by about the middle of February. That way we've got about a 45 close date, get you packed and on your way by the end of March and into San Antonio. Does that sound about right?
Wow, I guess so, yeah.
Peter, if your house isn't sold by the time you're ready to go to San Antonio, what's your plan B?
Well, that would be fairly disastrous, actually. My family needs to go. We've got another house under contract in San Antonio, and double payments would be pretty excruciating.
So, based on all of that information, and the fact that your home's been on the market for so much time.
Put that in the form of a question. You can, even though you know the answer, ask me how long my home has been on the market.
So how long has your home been on the market, Peter?
Gosh, when did we list it? Like September, middle of September, I think. It's middle of September.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason to do that, it matters who says it. You know the answer to these questions, but when they say it, it reinforces the problem. Okay? So, great. So go back and let's just redo that. So, Don, if we didn't sell this thing and be under contract and I had double payments, it would be pretty excruciating.
Okay, and so when did your home go on the market?
I think it was the middle of September.
And do you recall what the average days on market are in your neighborhood for a home like yours?
Let me ask you a question. Could you just cut to the chase now and say, why do you think it hasn't sold?
Why do you think it hasn't sold?
Do you think you could?
I
Would that
could,
be too steep?
But that would end our
depend.
exercise.
No, it wouldn't. Let's try both.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to run two different tracks here. We're going to try yes, I do remember that conversation.
And what exactly do you remember about that conversation, Peter?
How did you all feel about that question? A little bit steep, a little bit... Well, what do you mean? What do I remember about that? So let's go back and you don't get to ask a yes/no question.
Okay.
Yes.
So how would you rephrase that into a non-yes or no question?
I'm trying to remember what I asked you. I'm sorry.
Jess, do you remember the conversation that we had about days on market? So the question would be, what are you trying to get to here with the seller?
We're trying to get to a conversation on price.
Exactly, perfect. That's why I did like the idea of, tell me why you think it hasn't sold. Because she set me up for that pretty nicely, didn't she? She teed it up like, ooh, September 15th, and I had some anxiety body language, and like, ooh, something's bad here. So I think try it and let's see how the group feels.
Okay. So, Peter, why do you think your house hasn't sold?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me what you think?
Well, your home is beautiful. We've staged it incredibly. We've done the great marketing. We've done the open houses. But we're not appealing to the market what they're wanting to see. So remember we talked about the
Okay, so here's what we're going to do here. The natural tendency is to present. For the purposes of the group, we're going to try and make it in a question. It's a little forced, but almost every agent knows how to do the presentation thing. But the skill set that works great in these skills groups is really forcing the issue on questions. So let's parse that down and make one question out of the great presentation, and it was perfect.
Remembering that you're in charge of the decisions, what decision do you think we need to make to get this home under contract?
I'd like to point out here that I chose deliberately not to stop Amy here when she made the comment about we, because I wanted to preserve the win. The win was when she focused on the ninja process, that the seller is in charge of the decisions and the agent is in charge of the process. Aside from that, it was just terrific. So let's finish this up and enjoy the victory.
I want you to give her a high five. Everybody give her. The reason why that was so great, is what's the ninja principle there?
We're in charge of the process, they're in charge of the
Yes, that was just beautiful. And it all of a sudden shifted it back to me, and it was one sentence rather than 20, then a presentation. Brilliant, thank you very much.
So we're going to do a little practice group for you here, a demonstration on how in your weekly practice groups in your offices, this round robin scenario can get everybody involved in the process, and great learning can take place. So in this scenario, I'll be the buyer, and we've looked at a lot of houses, and I'm frustrated with the fact that we just haven't been able to find exactly the right house. And we're sitting down, and we're going to have we're going to do a debrief on why we haven't been able to find the right house so far. So, Amy, why don't you?
No, you start. You're the buyer.
Oh, okay.
You gotta start.
Amy, I really appreciate all the time that you've given us. You've been absolutely fantastic, and the snacks and the drinks and all that. It's been just great. But we're getting a little worn down here, and we're kind of running out of time, and we're frustrated that we just haven't been able to find that perfect house yet.
Do you remember when we talked about what the perfect house looks like, and we talked about that 80% home?
Yeah, I do, but I don't know. I'm not sure we found the 80% home yet either.
So, Don, how many houses have we looked at together, physically?
About 25.
About 25, and I was going to ask, and how many online?
And how many online?
I guess there's been 15 or so online. I think we've looked at pretty much everything that's currently on the market. We're kind of in that waiting stage now.
So of all of those homes that we've looked at, tell me what the top 3 houses look like.
Oh, yeah, great. That's a great question. Our top 3 at the moment, the house over on 3rd Street, there's a house over on 7th Street, and the house over on Elm Court. Those would be our 3, but we're just not feeling it.
I'm going to tee you up here.
Okay.
So I have 2 questions. When you say just not feeling it, elaborate a little bit more on that.
Well, we've always kind of felt like when we know the house the minute we walked in, and that just hasn't happened yet.
So let me jump out and jump back in.
Okay.
I was really going to ask him, of the 3, which one feels the closest? And then I was going to get him to describe that. But then when he said, we're not feeling it, I was compelled, because that was his closing thought, and I want to find out what not feeling it means. So I didn't tee you up the way I was hoping. Okay.
So out of all three of those, which one would you say was your top, and what did that home lack that was on your list?
Yeah, the one on probably the one on 3rd Street is our favorite, and I think what it was lacking was that it just didn't have quite the finishes in the kitchen that we were looking for.
So I'm hearing that finishes are important to you, but let me ask you this, Don. What did those 3 homes have in common that you were really attracted to?
The location, they're all in Windsor, and they all fit our price range, and the age of the house on all 3 was just about right.
So let me ask you a question. If the finishes on that number 1 house were the way you liked it, could you see yourself living in that house?
Absolutely.
So would you guys be willing to do any flipping or upgrading to the home?
I think within reason, yeah.
And if we could negotiate a price that would accommodate those, could you get excited about that house?
Now I hadn't really thought about that. That's a great idea.
Do you have a dollar amount in mind? The house is listed at $325, and at what price would you feel that you could move into that house?
Well, probably have to be no more than 310. We probably have to put $15,000 into it in order to make it work.
So this was perfect from my viewpoint. How long did that take? About 4 minutes.
Yeah, 3-4 minutes.
And this buyer has looked at 25 houses.
Yeah.
And by using the 3 core ninja techniques, rolling top 3, isolating what it is that is keeping them from, and he acknowledged that. I think we've just saved about another 3 trips in the car.
Yeah.
And would you all be happy to write an offer for $310,000 today?
Right. So one thing that comes up for me on this is that buyers oftentimes, in the heat of the moment, they think they're nowhere, but they're really much further down the line than they really are. And some great questions can isolate what's going on, maybe what's tripping them up a little bit. In this particular case, it had never occurred to this buyer that maybe they could do some improvements on the house rather than finding the house that was just right for them. Those were great questions.
And the other thing I'd love to point out, nobody presented anything here. We just one question after the time, and guess who made the decision?
The buyer.
The buyer.
Right.
We followed the process beautifully.
Yeah,
So I'd like to give a high five to the team here. Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo! Yeah. And thank you very much for spending time with us today. Hope this is useful. Have a great day.